So I have a few of my basic scenes that I can now use to walk this person or myself through the model. And these are really true to the way you'd actually see them if you were walking around on your own feet. So now what I want to do is I want to start putting in some section planes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to always start from my perspective 1 generic, and I'm going to create a new scene from this scene in which I can actually see the section cuts that I'm making, and I'm going to keep this perspective 1 generic such that I don't see the section cuts. And that probably makes no sense yet. It will in a second. So let's talk about sections. Sections are fantastic because they're really easy and they're dynamic in this program. So the section plane tool is at the bottom corner of your large tool set. When you click on it, what you get is you get a little square, and the square is very eager to snap to any point in your model and any plane in your model. It's more of the plane, I should say, more of a face, not a point. But this will work against any flat surface, and once I click on a flat surface, so in this case we're going to make a plan, and a plan is really just a section cut through a horizontal point on this building. So if I click once on the ground plane, you'll see my section cut extends to the entire model, so it's giving me the whole plot of this thing. So when I select the section now, if it's not selected, it's going to be orange, and orange means that it's active, so you can see that it's actually cutting through, but it's not selected. So in order to select it, you have to click on it with your select tool. It's now showing up as blue. So I'm going to switch to my move tool, and I'm going to click once on it. Now this is just like push-pull in that it only works parallel to the plane in which it started. So I'm not going to be able to move this in any kind of weird way other than directly up and down from where I started. But let's zoom in a little bit and see what's happening here. As I start to push-pull this up or down, what it's doing is it's cutting through the model actively all the way down and all the way up. So I can give this any point that I want to decide to cut this thing off. So let's go ahead and say 5 feet from the ground. And what I have here is now a pure, clean section over this model. So my next course of action would be to right-click on this active cut and do a line view, which gives me a pure view directly above this. Now I'm going to do view, and I'm going to turn off my section planes because I don't want to see my section plane in this scene. So I'm going to give myself a nice clean view above this. I'm going to add this as a scene, and I'm going to go to under name. I'm going to change this to plan first floor. Whoops. And then I'm going to do in parentheses perspective. And the reason I'm saying perspective is because I haven't turned the perspective off. So I'm actually looking down into this. It's kind of like those old game boards for Clue where you can see down into the room. And then I have to hit enter when I'm done because that's going to give me the actual that's going to actually name it. And if I need to adjust it, like if I've done a misspelling or something, I can just quickly adjust it and then hit enter again, and that's going to change. So I'm going to move this scene down because I want this scene after my perspectives. Let's go back to perspective 1 generic. Okay, good. So I don't see my section planes in this scene. So here's what I want to do. I want to do a scene where I can see the perspective cuts. So I'm going to go to view section planes and turn that on. So here you can see if I click on it, if I move out a little bit, whoops, go to my select tool, you can see that I can see my perspective or my section. I'm going to add this as a new scene. Now what it's going to do is it's going to say I'm now changing the style of the scene, and I'm going to get into styles a little bit more in a bit, but for now, what you need to know is that I do want to save this as a new style, because what I've done is I've updated the style in which I can now see my my section cuts, and that is considered a style change. So I'm going to save this as a new style, and I'm going to create the scene. So here I need to click on my name of the scene, and I'm going to call this one 4 sections, which means I'll always be able to see my sections in the scene. So now I need to go back to my perspective generic. So do you notice the difference? When I go to perspective 1 generic, I've got a scene that does not show me my section cuts, and when I go to 4 sections, I can see my section cuts. Let's see what happens if I go to exterior 1. Good, the section cuts are still not there, and the reason for that is because in this style that I created originally, you couldn't see section cuts. Same thing with entry, living, dining, and planned first floor. So in all of these, I can't see the section cuts. What I'm going to do now that I'm in planned first floor is I'm going to give myself a plan view that's perfectly straight down. So let's do, I've set this up as a shortcut, which is Shift P, and that turns my perspective off. You can also go to camera. It's under view. Hold on one second. This is going to take me a second. Camera perspective. It took me a moment because I haven't done it in a while using just the standard pull down tab. So if I go to camera perspective and turn the perspective off and on, that's it's also another one of those toggle tools where you can click it off and on. So I've now turned the perspective off. This isn't a style change, this is a camera change because it's changing the lens or the view of my camera. So now what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a pure plan of this. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new scene again. So I'm going to go to view, or window, excuse me, window, scenes, and I'm going to add this as a scene. Again, I'm going to tell it not to generate thumbnails. I'm going to add this as a scene now, and I'm going to call this plan first. And I'm not going to say that this is perspective or not, because a plan typically, that automatically is implied. So I'm going to hit enter for that, and I'm going to move down to my first floor. So let's take a look and see how that works. I go from plan first floor, and I go first floor perspective, and then I go to my plan first floor, and it gives me a pure straight on shot of it. Now let's go to the 4 sections tab. And the reason I'm going to start here is because I want to actually see my section cuts as I'm working. So I'm going to go and I'm going to create a section through the building this time. So this time we want to see what it looks like if you cut through the front of the building. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to align my view. And I'm going to Shift P to turn the perspective off. And I've got 2 styles. We're going to get into styles a little bit more, but let's go to my styles first. I've got my simple style, and then I've got the new style that I just made that shows the perspectives. So if I click on the two different options, you'll be able to see slightly the change here. And in this simple style, the first one, you can see the perspectives. In the second one, you can't. So this is the one I want selected. And what I'm gonna do here under simple style is I'm gonna just type in the name of the style, in parentheses, no section planes. And now once I've typed something, do you see how there's a little bit of the icon next to the style name has given me a new symbol where it's 2 arrows chasing each other. That means that it wants to be updated because I've just changed the style slightly. Again, I will get into styles a lot more in the videos to come. But so that you know how to kind of set up a model like this, know that when it's showing you this, it means that it needs to be updated. So when I click on that, it'll now be updated, and it's going to stay. The change that I've created is going to stay a part of that style now. And the change that I created was just typing in no section planes. So again, I've got my simple style, and then I've got my simple style with no section planes. So whenever I create a section from my 4 sections tool, or tab I should say, I'm sorry. So whenever I go to my 4 sections tab and create a new section plane, once I get into that scene where I want to be, I'm going to click on my simple style with no section planes. Then I'm going to go to my Shift C or pull up my window scenes. I'm going to add a new scene from that. And the new scene is going to be called Section 1. Enter. Alright, now you'll also notice that what I'm seeing is a perfect cut through of the entire, of any piece of geometry that I have created here. And you're seeing through the model. So you're seeing into what's happening on the back sides of every face. So you're seeing that purple, and you're also seeing that flicker from purple to white, which indicates you've got closed groups sitting right on top of each other. None of this is a bad thing. It's just kind of understanding the way this program works. So we're in a good spot here. We've created I've created, I should say, a plan that shows no perspective. I've got a section going. I've got a perspective view looking straight down onto the building that's been cut through at 5 feet. And then I've got my clean and easy to view perspective shots going through parts of the first floor. And ultimately, every time I want to start working on this file again, I'm going to go back to my perspective 1 generic. So that's a little basic tutorial on how to get your scene started and set up. And I want to start talking about how you can change the style for some of these scenes and make them look a little bit more like you might want them to look.